Welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. I have tragic news. You've just got me today. As Mercedes hit the train and went up to New York City, she'll be appearing on Greg Gutfeld's great new show, which is just killing all the late night comics because it's actually funny and enjoyable to watch. Humor. Remember when we used to be able to make fun of ourselves and other people? It's coming back. It's raring back. And today on the Senate floor, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about S1, the Senate companion of HR1, which I call the blue coup, which is an attempt to have complete constitutional chaos when it comes to the laws around elections, which grew out of the terrible atrocities of the 2020 election. And then a little later on in the show, we're going to be talking to somebody from the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Charlie Gerow, who's announced his bid to run for governor of Pennsylvania. He's the vice chairman here at ACU. He'll be talking about what we have to do on elections and many other important issues. The metastasizing of socialism in our society, which we're all seeing. But without further ado, we have a great guest, the guest you would want to have from the Senate to know what is going on with S1 in the Senate. The great conservative senator from the state of Utah, Mike Lee. Senator Lee, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Matt. Good to be with you as always. And I'm glad to hear that Mercedes finally came to her senses and took the train.
Yeah, I just hope she got a two-way ticket. I hope she got a round trip ticket, but we're going to find out.
I'm sure
Mike
she'll
Lee,
be back.
Okay, good. Mike Lee, you're the guy we turn to so often to try to explain what is going on. Can you start and explain to our viewers the action in the Senate today around S1?
Yeah, the Senate will be voting on cloture on the motion to proceed, which is also known as front-end cloture. It's a debate about bringing debate to a close about whether to open debate on the bill. But this is a bill that would cause a lot of problems. It's a bill that will not make it easier to vote. It will make it easier to vote illegally. It's a bill that would make election fraud easier to commit and harder to detect and punish. It would allow for unlimited vote trafficking by paid professionals whose job it is to collect and then cast votes for people. Perhaps most disturbingly to many people, this is a bill that would pour federal taxpayer dollars into political campaigns. That is a disaster. That's something no American wants to see. There are certain things U.S. taxpayer dollars should never be used to do, and political campaigns are one of those things.
So, Senator Lee, one of the things I think everybody is concerned about is the fragility of the support for the filibuster. We've had Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema come out and say they're going to continue to support the filibuster. Is there a chance they could, for a brief period of time, suspend that support to allow this blue coup, this change in our election law, to get to Joe Biden's desk? Or is this kind of like just overly worrisome thinking by a lot of Americans?
No, I don't think we can worry too much about the nuking of the filibuster, especially for S1, which I like how you describe it as the blue coup. Others describe it as the Illegal Voting Act or the Corrupt Politicians Act. But we should never cease to worry about this one, because if it were to pass, it would be extraordinarily bad. It would usher in a new era in which the Democratic Party would become the institutional political party in America. And my fear is that that is a feature, not a bug. So look, we can't worry about this too much, even though it appears unlikely that they'll have enough votes to do this now, or that they'd have enough votes to nuke the filibuster. We have to always be on guard about it, because it could happen.
If you were to, you're talking to Americans right now, but if you could encourage conservatives around the country to do anything, what would it be when it comes to S1? What should their advocacy be? Are there Republicans we should worry about, or is the focus really on Arizona and West Virginia?
Well, right now it's primarily on Arizona and West Virginia, but if you have any doubts as to where your U.S. senator stands on S1, the blue coup, you ought to reach out to them and instruct them to vote no, because this would gut overwhelmingly popular state voter ID laws. It would require states to allow unlimited vote trafficking. It would mandate ballot drop boxes. It would restrict the state's ability to maintain accurate voter rolls. And then this business of providing government funding for campaigns is awful, especially when you think, Matt, about the fact that in places like the former Soviet Union, they had elections, but the government decided who was on the ballot. What happens when we start funding campaigns? What that means is the government will then be in a position to decide who is a legitimate campaign and who is not. You don't want that.
Yeah, and how ironic you have the modern day Socialist Democratic Party trying to water down voter ID when you do the most sacred thing you can in a democracy, and that's exercise your privilege to vote. But at the same time, they want to mandate a passport, for which I assume you'd have to show an ID, to mandate a vaccine. These are times you just can't make sense of.
Yeah, no, look, trying to make sense of this, trying to reconcile those positions is like trying to describe the smell of the number 7. It's an entirely elusive task and one that can never be accomplished.
Well, you had the wrong number. You meant to say number 2, I think.
Oh, well played. Well played.
You're allowed to laugh in the sentence still. Mike Lee, you're a great man. You're a great champion for liberty. We love working with you. Thanks for giving us a quick update. We're going to be coming back to you, hopefully, as you can explain to us how we won on S1 and won on all these other extreme measures. Keep holding the line in the Senate, my friend.
Thank you. We'll do so. In the meantime, I'll hope and pray for Mercy's safe return and look forward to watching her on Gutfeld's show.
You got it. Thank you, sir. Welcome back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. It was great to get an update from Mike Lee right off the Senate floor about all of the problems that are going on in the United States Senate trying to push through all this radical stuff, like the idea that there's something wrong with having an ID to vote, or there's something wrong with the state of Georgia or the state of Texas determining what their own voting law is.
The idea that we would not want to ensure that the person who shows up at the ballot box to vote, that that's not the actual person who, under the Constitution, is allowed to vote. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It makes no sense. And so what are we doing about it?
Well, okay, so today's a big day, as the senator indicated. Senator Schumer is trying to take over our state election law process by federalizing it all. And that's bad enough, but of course it's what he's trying to federalize. It would completely upend free and fair elections. And the Democrats are on record saying that if they can just get this done, they will hold power forever.
So the concern is that Manchin and Sinema are out there saying both Democrats who are elected as moderates, it's the only way they could have won, and they're both out there saying good things about supporting the filibuster. The filibuster itself,
indicating that they would reject Schumer's efforts.
That's right.
We'll see.
And the filibuster, you could argue whether it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. It's a tool that the Senate uses to have a supermajority to vote. But this underlying bill,
right,
to nationalize our elections,
right,
is about the most destructive thing that could happen in Congress.
It would ensure that we have voter fraud forever.
Yeah.
It would ensure that anybody who wants to vote 5, 6, 7 times, they'll be able to. It will ensure that people will be able to vote one person's ballot because there's no ID required or there's no photo required. It's just obscene.
You can't listen to these people, including too many Republicans who are on your TV sets telling you that there was no evidence of widespread fraud in the last election. You worked for President George W. Bush's campaign in Ohio. You've been on the ground in big cities where they try to pull almost every trick in the book to try to make sure that there can be large numbers of illegal votes. The ACU took the lead in Georgia with your leadership to make sure that we had trained poll watchers and we were on the ground. Tell us a little bit of what you saw in Georgia.
Well, what I've seen in Georgia, what I've seen in lots of other states, the radical left has billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars at their disposal. They'll pay people to go out and essentially manufacture ballots, to register, and this is true, this is not just an exaggeration, to register Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. They just register as many names as possible. Of course, the billionaires who support this, they don't want Donald Duck actually registered because they want they want to sneak by without getting caught. But we'll see all of these fraudulent, illegal voting rolls, and when there are so many illegally registered people, then when mail-in ballots are sent, you get somebody in an apartment who gets 5-6 ballots, from registered to Donald Duck, and if Donald Duck votes, it counts.
So in the state of Nevada, where I spent too many days, it was similar. The head of the elections for Clark County, which is the county of the Harry Reid machine, had over 90,000 people on the rolls he knew were not legal voters.
Right.
He waited until the day after. I suppose he would say he made a mistake. I might think that he purposely waited till the day after to petition cleaning those rolls. He was denied that because he asked too late, and those people were mailed at least twice.
Right.
And those ballots were returned. And what you realize, I used to say that if a ballot gets cast like in a mailbox, it'll get counted. It's actually worse than that. If a ballot gets printed, right, and sent to somebody, Donald Duck or whoever, it has a chance of getting returned and voted on. This is this whole idea of ballot harvesting, which is legal in some states, illegal in other states. So we're not saying that the states do a perfect job. Georgia, the Secretary of State, did a perfectly horrible job. He should be impeached over what he did. What he did was illegal. Mm-hmm. He basically got rid of voter ID himself. Yeah. Within his own voice, he just got rid of it, which was corrupt, illegal. So we're not saying states always do it right, but what the chaos they brought to Georgia and to Clark County and to Philadelphia and to Detroit and to Milwaukee, they want to nationalize. Yeah. And they want to make it impossible for local places in red states to be able to have kind of rules-based voting.
These state legislatures are doing good work. And of course, they're being attacked by Delta Airlines and others who are trying to do good work. But just let the state legislatures improve these systems.
So what's your message to our activists out there who are watching?
Look, the fight is on. Chuck Schumer is trying to destroy our republic. Go to our website, go to conservative.org. You can actually sign a petition and have an instant access to your 2 senators in your own states so that you can tell those 2 senators, do not end the filibuster. Do not end the way our Senate has operated for decades and decades and decades. This is how we preserve democracy. Senator Sinema has in fact said just that this would destroy our democracy.
Yeah, what she said is there's something about a supermajority in the Senate because it creates a consensus. And although not everything in politics should be driven by consensus, I'm okay on the big things that we have kind of a long-term trajectory on how we regulate them and such.
Right. We've got to be careful when we make changes.
And the other thing is that if you're going to overturn our constitutional order, I'm okay with having to get a supermajority vote to destroy this founding document.
It's pretty simple, Matt.
Yeah, it is pretty simple. So thanks for all you're doing to get this going across the country, and for Denise Cohen, who runs this great new center that I'm sure you've heard a lot about on the show, the Center to Protect Voters and Their Voices. And we're going to be right back after this short break to talk to Charlie Gerow, our vice chairman, who's in this fight with us, and he's actually even in a bigger fight.
Yeah, he is.
In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We'll be right back after this short break.
I was born in a slum in Brazil, without hope or promise. My birth mother's dream was for me to be able to come to America, because she thought that perhaps here I'd be able to learn how to read. Then I was adopted by 2 loving missionaries who dedicated their lives to God and to others. We moved to Pennsylvania, where I found my home in the birthplace of democracy. While attending Villanova Law School, I helped elect Ronald Reagan president, who became an American legend for conservative values and the preservation of our freedom. It's not right what's happening to Pennsylvania, with elected politicians trying to move up while jobs and people are moving out. And if you try to say anything about it, they and the liberal media try to cancel you out. Well, we have a message for them. We will never be silenced, bought off, or called off by liberals, socialists, or anarchists out to destroy what our founding fathers sacrificed for and our soldiers bled for. I'm running for governor to make our voice heard, to end the assaults on our energy jobs, the attacks on our values, and the threats to our elections. Because when you grow up the hard way, you've got nothing to lose, but everything to fight for.
Charlie Gerow for governor.
Welcome back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. It's now our privilege to be joined by the Vice Chairman of the American Conservative Union, someone who has been a proud and loud member of the conservative movement emanating from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for a long time, Charlie Gerow. Vice Chairman Gerow, thanks for joining us on CPAC Now.
Great to be with you, Mr. Chairman.
So there's some news breaking in Pennsylvania concerning you. Tell our viewers about it.
Last week, Matt, I announced that I'm a candidate for governor of Pennsylvania. You know, it's not every week that you get to tell your fellow citizens that you'd like to be the governor, but last week I had that opportunity. I'm really excited to be getting into the heart of the campaign now. We waited and made the announcement last week, and we're off and running.
So tell me, why now? Why do this thing? You take all this personal sacrifice to hit the campaign trail. Why do you feel compelled to run?
Pennsylvania is really at a crossroads, Matt. As you know, politically, it's a critical and pivotal state. I think that having the governor's office back in Republican hands makes a huge difference in the next presidential election. I'd like to be there to help in that way. But more important for the citizens of Pennsylvania right now, we need to get our state back on track. After the lockdowns and shutdowns of the past year, Matt, where we were, stuck in our homes, our kids were kept out of school, businesses were padlocked. We've got a lot of work to do. I know what needs to be done. I know how to do it, and I'm ready to get going.
So your incumbent Democratic governor kind of took every wrong move when it came to combating Chinese corona. And I think people saw the impracticality of the way the modern day socialist Democrat views questions like this.
Well said, Matt. I mean, I've been a harsh critic of Tom Wolf, the most liberal governor in America. I mean, that's a title that's pretty hard to get when you consider the competition, but he held it. And throughout the pandemic, you saw what the far left was doing with arbitrary and capricious orders, which then became vindictive and punitive. They hurt people, and they did so deliberately. And so the people of Pennsylvania moved very quickly, just this past primary election, passing 2 constitutional amendments that would rein in any future governor from repeating what Tom Wolf did last year. I want to take that a step further. I'm going to push very hard for a constitutional amendment that would allow the people of Pennsylvania to recall and replace any governor that thinks he or she is a king.
I love that. That is, nobody should be afraid to check themselves, right? Their government power to the people. Do you get a sense that not only in Pennsylvania, but maybe in other places across this country, that there's kind of like, this is almost like a pitchfork moment?
It's been coming for a long time, Matt. I don't think it just happened. It began in the Tea Party movement of a decade ago, and it's been growing. This populist movement within the Republican Party that you have been such a big part of promoting. And I've been at your side while we've been doing that. And I see it now as a real opportunity to build a new winning coalition for conservatives in this country. I'm a coalition builder, as you know, Matt, and I want to make sure that we do that right here in the cradle of liberty, Pennsylvania.
So let's go through the issues that really affect the pocketbooks of the forgotten men and women of Pennsylvania, working families, et cetera. Energy is a big deal in Pennsylvania, right?
Energy is a huge issue here. And Tom Wolf and Josh Shapiro, who's going to be the Democrat nominee for governor, and if you thought Tom Wolf was bad, believe me, Josh Shapiro will be a whole lot worse. He's been after the energy industry, the natural gas industry in particular, trying to crush the one industry that has done so much for Pennsylvania over the course of the past decade, with high-paying jobs, with reduced energy bills for consumers, and with manufacturing being brought back to Pennsylvania in ways that we couldn't have had without the flourishing natural gas industry that we have. Tom Wolf and Josh Shapiro want to kill those jobs. I want to promote them.
How do you think the people of Pennsylvania view the idea that President Biden and his administration just green-lighted a pipeline from Russia to Europe, but they don't seem to want to green-light any pipelines here between Canada and America or extensions in America.
I mean, it's nuts when you think about it, Matt. We want to kill the Keystone XL pipeline, and yet we want to greenlight these overseas pipelines. Pennsylvania has an abundance of natural gas. Only Texas has more. We can be a huge exporter of energy here in our Commonwealth and do so much for so many. And yet some folks, for whatever reasons I frankly don't understand, want to hold us back. You said it a moment ago, the forgotten people of Pennsylvania are going to have their voices heard, and they're going to have it heard through my campaign, because it's going to be a campaign from the people, for the people, and jobs and energy are at the top of the agenda.
I have a new slogan for you, Mr. Vice Chairman. If it's good enough for Putin, it's good enough for Pennsylvania.
I like that.
And there's a lot of other issues, obviously, that affect the people of Pennsylvania. We have this whole question of the reordering of really basic fundamental questions, like this whole gender ideology, where it's not so much what it used to be about, which is having tolerance for people in the LGBTQ community, but now it's about this idea of pushing this idea that there really are no genders and you can morph and you can transition into be almost anything you want. Now we have this Olympian who sends out a tweet, which we'll put on the screen, basically saying that she hopes she wins her division at the Olympics so that she can burn the flag. What's going on in this country, and what do the people of Pennsylvania want to hear about issues like this?
When the people of Pennsylvania hear our values under assault in that way, they get angry, and I do as well. And this whole issue of transgendered people in sports is a real problem. I had the great honor of coaching women's basketball once upon a time. They only play with 5 people. So if you put 2 biological males on the court with those 5 young ladies, 2 of them, to be very candid, are going to sit on the bench. And by extension, that means that 2 people at the end of that bench are being pushed off and aren't going to be able to participate at all. So it's basically not only a matter of fairness to women, but it's just simply a matter of common sense that you would not allow biological males to compete in women's sports. It takes away their opportunities for scholarships. It takes away their opportunity to simply participate. And it's a killer for Title IX, which so many people work so hard for.
It's interesting, the Democratic coalition of all of these groups and their identity of politics, in the end, it really can't stay together when you take them to their logical extremes. And what you have is people exiting this Democrat coalition that's been together for a long time, and they're joining our cause. Is that part of this whole populism thing, that people aren't that connected to a party, but they know what they think?
You bet, Matt. And as I said, I'm by nature a coalition builder. I've done it all my life, and I want to build a new coalition for conservatism beginning here in Pennsylvania. And you see it with the folks that are leaving the Democrat Party over jobs, for example. Organized labor folks coming to the Republican Party in droves because their party abandoned them on the issue of jobs.
And the other issue that's affecting people across the country, but especially in these collar counties and these areas around big cities, is just explosion of crime. We've got a chart here, which we'll put on the screen, which shows that in Philadelphia, according to the National Fraternal Order of Police, crime is up, murders up 37% in Philly. Shootings are up 27%. In Atlanta, homicides are up 58%. In Portland, as we know, where they had this kind of alternate city capital, it's 533% increase. That this cannot make good politics anywhere at any time for anyone.
No, you have these George Soros-backed district attorneys, including one in Philadelphia, who don't want to prosecute crime. And while they're busy doing other things, the crime rate, and the violent crime rate in particular, begin to go up and up and up and up. And then what do we hear? Well, let's defund the police. Well, believe me, Matt, nobody is going to defund the police under my watch.
One of the great stories about CPAC, Charlie Gerow, is the fact that students flock to our conferences, both overseas and here in this country. And we're obviously going to be in Dallas, July 9th through the 11th. Give us your reaction to this idea that somehow students and young people are embracing socialism, They're questioning the whole experiment of America. Is your experience in working with CPAC much different?
Well, it's been great what you and Dan and the staff there have done with CPAC, Mac, to make it largely a young people's event. I forget what the average age is. You can remind me, but it's very, very young. The folks
younger than us, I will tell you.
A lot. That doesn't. There's a lot of running room there, Matt, but way younger than us. And it's a great thing. And yes, our students, unfortunately and sadly, are being indoctrinated every day with anti-American propaganda, with critical race theory, with 1619 project initiatives, et cetera. And they've got to get away from that, and many are doing it on their own initiative. But I'm talking already in this campaign, Matt, about a couple of very important things. First of all, school choice for those children that tragically are trapped in failing schools that are not failing because of anything they did, and we will be looking for an opportunity for them to get out of them. But in all of the schools, we got to get back to basics. I want us to again teach civics in our classrooms instead of this indoctrination that's been going on that has trapped a lot of kids into thinking that maybe what they believed about America wasn't true.
One of the great things about your life, Charlie Gerow, is that you're an immigrant, that you have this beautiful story of being raised in poverty in Brazil, and due to the decency of America, and I think America and Americans are some of the most decent, open, caring people that we've ever seen. And you had a wonderful couple that adopted you and gave you your American dream. Why is that important in this day and age?
Well, Matt, it's critically important to a lot of people. And while I've lived in Pennsylvania virtually all my life, as you pointed out, I wasn't born here. And thank God I didn't have to be raised in the abject poverty into which I was born. I was adopted as a very, very young child by two loving American missionaries and brought to the United States because my birth mother, when she put me up for adoption, asked specifically that I be adopted by Americans, because she said, if he goes to America, perhaps he'll be able to learn how to read, because to her, that was the greatest thing to which anyone could aspire. She understood that America is the land of true opportunity. And she knew, without even maybe having the philosophical ability to discuss it that you have, Matt, that freedom was necessary to pursue those opportunities. So she sent me to a place where opportunity lived and where freedom allowed me to pursue it. And so when I talk about freedom and when I talk about opportunities, it comes from really deep within my soul.
And is she going to vote for you?
Unfortunately, my birth mother is long gone, but my adopted mother is living, and she's very excited about me running for governor, and she lives here in Pennsylvania, and I'm guessing she'll vote for me.
It's a great story, Charlie. We're very proud of what you're doing. It takes a lot of courage to run for office. I'm glad you feel compelled to do it. I think you're going to be joined by a lot of candidates across this country who are looking at the specter of socialism getting a grip, not only in the souls of our kids, but in public policy coming out of state capitals and our national capital. And we wish you Godspeed. We're going to be with you by your side. And, there was a lot of Republican success in Pennsylvania, despite this strange facts around the election last time. Republicans had a lot of success, including a couple of statewide elected offices, right?
They did. They won the state treasurer's office and the auditor general's office, the first time in a lifetime that that's happened here in Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of good things going on in the conservative wing of Pennsylvania and in the Republican Party here. I'm delighted to be a candidate, Matt. I'm honored to have your support and Mercy's support and the support of an awful lot of folks across Pennsylvania. We're just going to be growing those numbers over the course of the next few weeks.
All right, good luck, my friend. And we're going to be right back with some good news on CPAC Now America.